Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about Umar Johnson and his gambling that we saw. So just when we thought that Umar couldn't get any lower, here we go. Here he goes. So Umar did a live video gambling at a slot machine in a casino, claiming that he has never gambled before and this was his first time gambling, and he was trying to get some money for the supposed FDMG school. And side note, a lot of people have been saying, hey, FDMG stands for Family Da Money Gone, which is why I believe that's why he's gambling. I'm just so disgusted. I mean, I'm not shocked, but I'm very much disgusted and disappointed. This man is officially the prince of panhandling, okay? Now, when you talk about he's the prince of something, he's the prince of panhandling because that's all he does. Every minute Umar is online, whether he is talking about something real or deep or not, or he's speaking quote-unquote truth to power, he finds a way to beg for money, claiming it is for this so-called school, which I don't believe is ever going to be built or come into fruition. I've heard of people who were in high school and college when they heard of this school from Umar or his plans to build the school who have now graduated. I've heard of people who have kids who were in elementary school when they heard of this school and even planned on sending their kids to the school, and who their kids have now graduated high school and somewhat college. Lovely T, who I am a subscriber to and a supporter of, and she has, said that she believes this school will come into fruition. Now, she recently did a live video saying that she doesn't believe that this will ever come into fruition. Her oldest son, she said, was in elementary school when she first heard about Umar's plans to build a school, and she thought that it was a great idea, just like a lot of other people who have believed in his so-called vision of this so-called school before realizing it was a scam. She said that her son now, her oldest son, is about to graduate high school. I honestly believe that, unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but I believe that Umar will be no longer here on this earth before this school will be built. I've heard that a lot of people who had their children in elementary and middle school, their children are now in high school or getting ready to graduate high school. I guarantee some people will have their kids and have their great-grandkids before Umar ever opens up this school, leading me to believe that this school probably was never going to come into fruition. Umar has continued to move the goalposts, whether it be the dates of when this supposed school will open, from when he was on Roland Martin, he's in 2017, where he said it would be open August of 2017, if not August of 2018. August of 2017 and 2018 have passed. Then he said he was going to open it on Valentine's Day of 2019. Lennon Honor has the live videos. You can go back to it. He has also moved the goalposts with the amount of money he claims is needed for quote-unquote renovations that he's been saying he's been needing for the last 2.5 years. So he shows himself at a slot machine saying that he needs $2 million for the school, and if he can get the $1.2 million that was shown on the screen of the slot machine, that he would be set. So he plays it twice and loses, and in typical Umar fashion, he says that the ancestors didn't want him to get the money that way, and that we the people, or his supporters, need to pay him and quote-unquote run them donations and get on your Cashapp and hit the PayPal, and he inserts his cash tag in his PayPal. And this is another thing too. Umar is honestly always bringing the ancestors in something, kind of like how when people are doing some, very foul-ish, and then they like to bring God up into it, or when they're caught in some type of weird thing, they like to bring God into this, especially when they're in the wrong. But you know what? Umar does this all the time with the ancestors. Everything is always a connection to the ancestors, and this school is going to open on this date when the Nat Turner Rebellion happened, or the quadricentennial or the bicentennial of when this great thing happened is going to open up on his birthday. And he really has this messiah and godlike complex about him, which leads me to believe, not even leads me, but actually makes me believe that this man is suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. This guy is the epitome of a gamma male disguised as wanting to be an alpha male. And for the people like, beta people who may not understand, what true leadership is, and because our people, and I get it because of what we're going through and what we have been going through, we just grasp onto the words he says. So it doesn't matter how many times the Breakfast Club or whoever allows him to come on their platform without vetting him first. Oh, black people I'll see in the comment sections of that last Breakfast Club interview, which I'm not shocked but very disappointed that they keep bringing this man on. They will just not question him about the school, but because he talks that quote unquote pro-black stuff, you guys will listen. And some of you will still donate money to this man. And anyone who disagrees, especially if you're just new to the man, if anyone who disagrees and calls him out, you're this, you're that, you're a hater, how dare you call out the revolutionary, you're a COON, all of that stuff. But anyway, Umar begs for money for food after he begs for the money for the school. He now begs for food and says, hey, can you give Dr. Umar so he can eat for the day? And this is honestly just a 2021 version of the homeless people that you see on the street begging for money at subway stations and bus stations. And trust me, I live in New York City, so I'm around the train stations and the subway stations a lot when you go, especially if you go to places like some parts of Brooklyn and Manhattan. Especially Manhattan, there will be people, whether they're homeless or not, but there will be people out here with a cup and jingling the cup of change and saying, oh, can you spare me this? Can you spare me that? There are a lot of panhandlers here. And honestly, speaking of homeless people, I honestly do believe that Umar Johnson is homeless, because either he does live stream every other day. He's either doing live streams out of cars or in his cars, or he's doing live streams in parks in front of those abandoned trap house buildings, Curtis. Shout out to Len and Honor for that. He's either doing them in motel rooms, etc., airports, etc., begging for money because you really have no other source of income. And those speaking engagements that he used to have all dried up. And even if he was getting a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean that could have been feeding him enough. And because, according to Len and Honor and some of the facts and everything that he's put out there, Umar Johnson is actually not allowed to work with children or not allowed to work in schools in the state of Pennsylvania. So if that's the case, he has no real income based on his so-called 6 degrees that he claims to have. Also, he has in recent years blamed the lack of progression of this so-called school and why it hasn't been built yet on Black people. He used to blame it on white folks and, white business and corporations like PayPal and GoFundMe when he said, PayPal sabotaged us, y'all. Now he blames the community for the reason that this hasn't been built yet, and just like he did on Lord Jamar's podcast, which is one of the reasons Lord Jamar said, hey, he clobbered himself on that podcast. And one thing, though, that I really appreciated about Lord Jamar. I'm not the biggest Lord Jamar fan, okay? But one thing I did appreciate about Lord Jamar, the same thing I appreciated about Roland Martin, was that especially if you already were hip to the game of Umar and this whole school fiasco scam, they pressed him and vetted him with the hard questions that the Breakfast Club wouldn't do. And let's just be honest. I think at this point, the Breakfast Club is using Umar the way Umar is using the Breakfast Club. Because the Breakfast Club is actually one of the few big platforms that Black people listen to and tune into, that Umar can spew out his message and at least eventually get some money from. And the Breakfast Club will ask no questions. And because, Black people, they want to hear the pro-Black message, kind of like, you want to hear the church message every Sunday, you won't question it. But the more and more, even some of the new people, the more and more they see his antics outside of those platforms, they start backing away from Umar. Some of these people who are calling him out, like myself, we're not just people that get on YouTube just to bash Umar. This is not all people just bashing Umar for clout. These are people like me, like Psyched Perspective, like Let's Get Into It with Ian J, who were once fans of this guy. There were people who have actually even donated, like Psyched Perspective back in 2011, as he says, that, have not seen their money and what they've donated to come to fruition. Even on I think they're now called Hip Hop Uncensored, but they were called Uncensored Truth, sometime in 2019. They talked about it. And Sandman on that podcast said, hey, there's a single mother out there whose 4-year-old son, who has a 4-year-old son whose father may not necessarily be in that situation, and she looks to you and gives you her last $40 to, hopefully put her son in a place where you can give him the skills and the tools to teach him how to grow from a young Black boy to a young Black teenager into a young Black man. And in the year freaking 4, she has not seen her, $40 come to fruition or any progress from that. Her son is now 8, and you're telling her that you can't ask questions? So, and it's another thing too. Lord Jamar, who I believe has done his research like Roland Martin did, but people gave him a lot of flack for that. He said that, hey, sometimes even when your actual donors, because Umar likes to say he's only transparent with his donors, Lord Jamar said, well, I heard that even when your actual donors would ask you questions, you would be dismissive with them as well. And remember, Umar doesn't care about people. He cares about donors. And I think that Lord Jamar interview should have been the nail in the coffin. And if that wasn't the nail in the coffin for him, or if that wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back for some people, this should be it. But guess what? Because there's a sucker born every minute, and there are people who have cult-like mentalities where they, this man, Umar, just gives me serious Jim Jones vibes, where people will be, with him to the end, sipping that Kool-Aid with the cyanide that will kill them. Because there were people in that live stream, from what I'm being told, that were donating to him when he said, okay, hit the Cashapp and give me your PayPal and, give me some money so I can get something to eat afterwards. At this point, you guys are just giving money to a homeless man who doesn't want to work. And I also want to touch on the Breakfast Club for a quick minute. And when I said that the Breakfast Club likes to use Umar the same way Umar likes to use the Breakfast Club, the Breakfast Club likes to bring Umar out for views, because he creates controversy. But I was actually very upset that they keep bringing this man on. This is the last few weeks that he was on. That the latest interview he did with the Breakfast Club, that was his 5th interview with them. After the 3rd, I was like, why do they keep bringing this man on? And honestly, I can even tell that Umar is possibly homeless because, he used to be a little bit more clean cut the first 3 interviews, but that 4th interview was just looking like, no, you were cleaning yourself up a bit because, you have to save face. But the Breakfast Club likes to bring Umar on, and notice how Angela Yee doesn't show up when she's there. And, they'll get into the topic of his views on interracial marriage, and because they're not going to question the school, but they're going to question everything else. And they were milking the hell out of that particular interview. Now, I personally am open to interracial dating because, I don't put my eggs in one basket like that. And it's not really because I'm against Umar's stance on interracial dating because he's just claiming to love black women. I have no problem with a black man who says, I love black women. But Umar is a person who does not practice what he preaches. And this reason why his valid points, he may have valid points when it comes to that subject, but I don't take his stance seriously when he claims, oh, I love black women and you better be with a black woman. Your greatest contribution to the movement is being with a black woman, that blue, black, chocolate, black woman. And I was a little bit upset, very upset that Lovely T had his back on that stance when it came to the Roland Martin interview, because I'm just saying this man right here has a track record of being disrespectful to black women, specifically ones who just simply don't agree with him, okay? Because remember what happened with Kim Ringgold, the so-called conscious stripper, when he was caught with his pants down his ankles, with his pants at his ankles, literally and figuratively. When he was caught in that situation, he turned everything around on her and said, oh, she ruined everything and she was an agent, she was a maggot disguised as a queen and she was sent to destroy me, and I almost had $1 million from an athlete, an NBA player who I won't name, and she ruined it. And even Lovely T eventually came out and said, well, there are basketball players and NBA players and athletes who's been caught with bigger scandals than this. So I don't understand why, which is leading me to believe, which honestly makes me believe that there was no athlete. He was just making that up. This man has 2 to 3 children. Some people say it's 4. This guy is a perpetual baby daddy and he owes child support for his kids. So this is why I don't like to listen to these Hotep men and Hotep dusty men like Umar who talk all this pro-black stuff, and this is coming from someone who was a fan of this guy, a supporter who was telling people to listen to this guy. I don't buy all that most of that pro-black, Hotep stuff from these men, because they're just Pookies and Ray Rays, but they like to dress everything in what they say and what they do in so-called pro-blackness, quote unquote, and consciousness and wokeness. And they never really practice what they preach. So I do not like to take, especially when Umar Johnson and Kevin Samuels got into that back and forth, I'm just like, neither of these men are worth listening to. Even if they do have valid points, I say eat the meat, spit out the bones maybe. But these 2 men, honestly, you should not be taking advice from them because they have a track record of just not practicing what they preach. Another thing with Umar is the practical false comparisons to and also blaming Black people for not giving them money. So for instance, if you remember that grits conversation that he had, or that grits, thing that he had online and with the Lord Jamar podcast. Oh, can you give me your grits money? Can you give me your Black Friday money? Over $1 trillion in spending power that Black people have, and you spend it on Quaker grits, and you can't give me the grits money. But although he has a valid point, the difference between when we give our money to you and Quaker grits is that we get a product in return when we buy Quaker grits. People have been donating to you for over 10 years and still nothing. And also, it's not just Black people that buy Quaker grits. So I feel like this is a gaslighting attempt using false equivalencies. So again, people, stop donating to this man. This guy is just off his rocker. And the funny thing is, the guy used to be sharp and the guy was very intelligent, great orator. But at the end of the day, that's all he has at this point. And this is a case of how the almost mighty have fallen. So yes, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and please hit the notification bell so you know when I post a video so you don't miss it. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.